Hey guys, welcome to the search for God. So this week I want to talk to the Christians out there. Now, I know you may be listening and you say, well, I'm not a Christian, or I was hoping to learn more, I get that. I do have a podcast called The Search for God, and I am someone who spent a lot of time searching various religions, and so there are plenty of episodes there that I think will meet some of what you're looking for, if that's what you are looking for. But this episode and this section, I'm going to speak mostly to the Christians. And I wanted to share something from Tim Tebow's devotional. He put out a 1-year devotional called Mission Impossible. And part of that 365-day devotional is there's about a week or two worth of content about what he calls a mission mindset. Now, the word mindset is a mnemonic, which, if you need a refresher like I did, I couldn't remember exactly what that word was, but a mnemonic is when you have like a word like mindset, and each letter stands for a word. And so in Tim Tebow's case, he came up with this mnemonic called mindset. And the M is maker, the I is interruptible, N is now, D is different, S is suffer, E is excellence, and T is to the end. So let's just go through those real quick. And I thought this would be worth covering because I feel like he, with this mnemonic, came up with a pretty good description and overview of what the Christian life should be about. Once you have been saved or devoted your life to God, you obviously become a new creature. And this mindset, this mnemonic that he came up with, I thought is really good. So let's just run through them real quick. Again, they're from the 1-year devotional Tim Tebow wrote called Mission Impossible. If you're intrigued by it, I got a link in the episode notes so that you can actually, go grab the book off Amazon or wherever you prefer. So the first letter, M, or maker. As Tim Tebow says, know your maker. Know that God was the grand designer. Everything from the stars in the sky to the crawling creatures on the ground. Everything was created by God and for God. And even though we're called to a mission, as he says throughout the book, the mission is not about us, it's about him. It's about God. So it's with him, it's through him, because he made us, he saved us. And so, M, know your maker. Your mission is about him, not you. Now let's go to the I in mindset. Interruptible, or as he said, be interruptible. And he describes it beautifully as see people's needs. As you go through the day, as you go places, see people's needs and do something about them. For instance, today when I went to lunch during work, there was a guy that was asking for a little money outside the place I was stopping to eat. I ended up taking the guy in, buying him lunch, and had lunch with him. I'd love to tell you that I enjoyed it. I'd love to tell you I said something very important to him. I mostly encouraged him. He was looking for jobs. We talked about God. He's the grandson of a preacher. I'd love to tell you that it was the most powerful thing I've done, or that I do this a lot. That's not the case. But I know that when I did it, I was thinking of what Jesus teaches us in Matthew, that how you treat the hungry, the thirsty, the sick, strangers, prisoners, etc. How you treat those, that's how Jesus says, and in fact the verse is, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. And so today, selfishly, this sounds terrible, but I enjoy reading my Bible during lunch. I would have rather been reading my Bible and relaxing my mind. That's a terrible thing to say. But that's how people get addicted to religion. We're not supposed to do religion. We're supposed to be the hands and feet of God. And so I sat across a guy that needed someone to talk to, needed some encouragement, needed just some practical advice on seeking employment. I actually, he had 4 different business cards. I actually knew the manager of the place I was eating at because I've been eating there for almost 2 years, and introduced him to her, tried to help him get a job. And I just was like, man, like God put that guy in my path. But I needed to be, as Tim Tebow said, interruptible. As a Christian, you got to be interruptible. You are a part of a much larger plan than what we can see with our very small eyes and mind. Again, I'm not saying any of this for attention. I don't do it a lot. I should do it far more. But one of the things I try to do is I try to see needs. Don't turn your eye from that homeless person. Don't turn your eye from that single mom who looks scared and is being potentially threatened by someone. Like, see things. And as a Christian, we should not be in a rush to go everywhere. I know sometimes with kids it's not possible, but as you can, you leave early so that you're not rushed in traffic and mad at someone cutting you off, so that you can pull in that gas station and help someone, so that you can be interrupted and help somebody. We're not designed to just run 100 miles per hour through life until we get to the finish line, and then God says, you missed 100 different opportunities that I needed someone for, and you didn't take care of it, so I sent someone else. We are called to be interruptible. It's just a beautiful thing that Tim Tebow lays out. All right, next letter. N as in now, or act now. Tim Tebow cited the 2-minute drill and went into that analogy, but my thought immediately jumped to the book of James, where in chapter 2, James says, you should do things if you can. I'll read the verse. He says, what good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith but don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say goodbye and have a good day, stay warm and eat well, but then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? James is even more direct in chapter 4. He says in verse 17, remember, it is a sin to know what you ought to do and then not do it. It doesn't get more direct than that. I had money in my wallet. I have money in the bank. I have a great job. And to have walked by that guy and seen the look in his eyes in the unbelievable heat of the hot parking lot, and to have not invited him in to sit at that table, I think would have been a sin. So, again, act now. That is the N. I got to keep this thing moving. So the D, be different. He says to make a difference, you must be different. In his book, he talks about Noah and how Noah was different from the rest of the world, how Noah himself found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So it's not about being popular. It's not about being liked or approved of by the world. Once you're a Christian, it's about being different, being a new creation, being transformed in the Spirit of the Lord, and becoming something that the Lord can use to reach other people. All right, moving along to the S in mindset, in the mnemonic mindset. S is suffer. Tim Tebow says, be willing to suffer. He says, if you are passionate about something, you will suffer for it. Think about the injuries, the pain, the sweat that he put into football, and he says we should do the same for our faith. We should wake up a little earlier and desire to be in the Word. We should desire to be spending time with God in prayer. We should desire to be by ourselves at times, to recenter ourselves, to ask God what He wants you to do. But to do these things, you have to suffer. Moving along, let's get to the E. E is excellence. or pursue excellence. He says, whatever you do, do it well. And he quotes Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who back in 1956, while only 27 years old, gave a speech in Montgomery, Alabama, where he said, in part, whatever your life's work is, do it well. If it falls your lot to be a street sweeper, sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures, like Shakespeare wrote poetry, like Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets so well that all the host of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lived a great sweeper who swept his job well. And Tim Tebow also quotes from 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31. It's a pretty popular verse. You've probably heard it, but it says, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all things for the glory of God. You know, earlier this week, I came around the corner down the hallway and was smiling as someone approached me, and she's a newer employee, and she said, you're always smiling. Like, why are you smiling? And I just instantly answered what I often say. And I said, I have to. And she said, why? And I said, because I am an ambassador for God. And that's how I feel. That's how all Christians should feel. We should be different. People should want to know, like, why is that guy the way he is? Why is that woman the way they are? You should be different. How am I smiling while at work? Because I wake up like 2 hours before I need to, and I do a devotional, and I try to get my mind in the right place. Otherwise, I rush to work, and I'm grumpy, and I'm like everyone else. I don't want to be like everyone else. I don't know how many days I have. I have very few opportunities to impact people. The Bible is very clear that we do not know the number of our days, that our life is like a mist. It could be over tomorrow. And so I want to make that impact. You don't go through life with this, before I reactivated my faith, life was drudgery, and I cared about, promotions at work or trying to promote my books or sell more. I was trying to climb some hill or whatnot, and usually we don't do real well climbing these hills or getting those promotions, and so we get depressed and we get angry and we turn to alcohol, or maybe we'll work harder and we harm our families by spending even more time at work, chasing more money. There's just this, you're on like a treadmill, a rat race, and it is miserable. And you don't have to be that way. You can have the peace of God, you can be content, and you can show people that God says He will give us our daily bread. He doesn't say He will put a ton of money in the bank account. He doesn't say that you will have no concerns about future things. He says, live for today. Tomorrow will have enough problems, and be content. We are literally the sons and daughters of God Himself. And so God's going to provide. We don't have to rush after those promotions. We don't have to work a ton of extra hours because we are being looked out for. We are just sheep. We are literally something that the greatest, most powerful force in the world is looking out for. Our days are numbered. We have no reason to be as concerned as everyone else. Paul himself says in Philippians chapter 1 that for to me, living means living for Christ, and dying is even better. Like either way, we're winners. We should have absolutely, I don't want to say no concern, but very few concerns. God is in control. We lean on an all-powerful force, and we should have a peace about us that other people cannot wrap their arms around. And now finally, to the final letter in the mnemonic of mindset, it is to the end. T, to the end. We are to move forward in faith to do what you are called to do. That could be anything from putting out a podcast that may not grow as fast as you wish on the side. It could be serving in your church, the kids ministry, or it could be 100 different things. It could be visiting prisoners. It could be helping the homeless. It could be whatever it is that you feel called to do. Sometimes it's literally helping take care of a widower or someone that's alone or lonely in your neighborhood, helping mow the grass of that person that's struggling, whatever it is. Like, do it for the glory of God and pursue this Christian life with just a smile on your face and an energy and a happiness that is different. So again, the mnemonic for mindset is maker. Know your maker. Interruptible is I. Be interruptible. N, now. Act now. D, different. Be different. S, suffer. Be willing to suffer. E, excellence. Pursue excellence. Pursue this life, this Christian life, in as excellent a way as possible. And then finally, T, to the end, all the way to the end. We're going to run through the tape. We're going to give everything we can. And what are we ultimately trying to do? We're following the most important commandments, which is love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. That is all the laws condensed down into 2 sentences. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. But once again, all of that came from Tim Tebow's book. It's the 1-year devotional called Mission Possible, and I got a link to it in the episode notes if you want to go take a look at it. It's something I try to read every day before I go into work. And I assure you that my copy is covered in blue ink. And in fact, if you look in the episode notes, you'll see the mission mindset. I hand wrote the entire thing onto a note card and squeezed in lots of notes about it because I want to be reminded of it as I flip through note cards pretty regularly. I want to be reminded of what the mission mindset is, what we are called for, what the race is that we're all trying to run as best as we can. Not because we're trying to earn salvation or do anything like that. We do it because Jesus loved us and gave his life for us. And it's just how we repay it. And we do it. You don't ever feel like you have to do these things out of compulsion. You do them because they bring great joy. And once you have experienced this, I would much rather spend a little time in my devotional or doing what I feel God has called me to do than sitting there looking through social media, getting anxious and angry, or watching some video of, some traumatic thing that gets in your head, or binging Netflix or whatever. Like, we all have these terrible habits. That is not what we're called to do. And I just don't want to get to the end and have Jesus say, you knew all those sports stats and everything there was to know about that football team, but you didn't read, half the Bible, or you didn't do this, or you walked by because you were in a hurry and you didn't help this person. I don't want it to end that way. So take a look at the book. Hopefully some of this helped you in some way. I really hope and pray it did. It definitely has helped me. As always, thanks again for being here this week, guys. Look forward to catching you all again soon. And just a reminder, I do put out another podcast. It's called The Stan R. Mitchell Show. As I describe it to people, it's a place for balanced takes on politics and world news without the anger or hype. I believe we can stay informed and stay hopeful, plus a few minutes of biblical encouragement in every single episode to remind us that faith, peace, and perspective still matter. Also, just a reminder, I have written 12 books. They've been pretty successful. I've been blessed to have sold 70,000 copies, and I promise, even though I live in Tennessee, I do not have that many cousins. But I did want to mention one of them, Little Man in the Dixon County War. It's a Western, very fast-paced. It does have a bit of a Christian angle to it at the end. I've rewritten part of it. So if you're a person of faith and you want to buy a book for someone, that one has a Christian angle, no dirty language, nothing like that. But it is a fun shoot 'em up, really good story. It's done pretty well. I'm very proud of that book. And then finally, if you wish, you can also support the show through several different ways. All of the details are in the episode notes, but you can subscribe through Substack for $5 per month. You can subscribe through Patreon if you've ever heard of that website for $5 per month. You can even send a tip through Venmo or PayPal. Again, as you guys probably have picked up on, I have been blessed in this life to be a creator. I love writing. I love doing podcasts. As you guys probably guessed, I do work a full-time job, so I try to squeeze all of this stuff in as I can. But long-term, I would love to be a full-time creator again, if that is God's will. And you can help me get there if you'd like, only if you feel like you want to. As the Bible teaches, God loves a generous giver. Do not help, support, or do any of those things because you feel pressured to. You don't owe me anything. You can listen to all this stuff for free. God will provide the way if it's meant to be His will. I think that's pretty much everything, guys. Again, thanks for listening. If you haven't dropped a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you're listening, you can do that as a way to help the show grow and teach the algorithms that this is good content. Hey, have a great week until we talk again soon. Stay strong in the faith. And as always, to God be the glory.